Today I will be delving into the topic of developmental networks within genetics using the characters from the popular and arbitrarily the greatest show, The Office. I will use this bar to represent a repressor and this arrow to represent an activator. Repressors work to inhibit the action of the following character, and activators will in turn work to promote the action of the following character. Here we have our complete developmental network. These characters work for Macmillan, a paper company. Jim Halpert is a paper salesman. He makes calls throughout the day working to sell paper to people in the Scranton area. Dwight Schrute, as assistant to the regional manager, makes sure that Jim is doing his work and isn't goofing around or pulling pranks, activating him. Michael Scott is the regional manager and is in charge of Dwight, activating him. Todd Packer, a scatterbrained traveling salesman, often distracts Michael Scott from his work and therefore acts as a repressor on him. David Wallace employs Todd Packer, acting as his activator. Jan Levinson Gold is salty about being fired from her position at Dunder Mifflin and tries to ruin David Wallace's position and reputation, acting as his repressor. We will look at some of the mutations that affect the flow of this developmental network. In our first mutation, Jan Levinson Gold is out of town and is not around to pester or repress David Wallace. Because of this, David is able to employ Todd Packer, who is then able to distract Michael Scott and prevent him from making Dwight perform his job as assistant to the regional manager. Therefore, no paper is sold. Even though Jan is a repressor, she is essential and vital for the completion of the network and the paper sells. In our second mutation, Michael Scott is out of the office for a day to attend an improv class. Since Michael is gone, there is no one to make Dwight act as assistant to the regional manager, and therefore Jim doesn't do his job and no paper is sold. In our third mutation, Todd Packer is fired due to his inappropriate behavior, and around the same time, Jan Levinson Gold has a restraining order taken out on her by David Wallace. Since Todd Packer is further down the line, his mutation is what will eventually affect the paper sales. Since Todd Packer isn't there, Michael Scott is able to do his job, activating Dwight, who activates Jim, who in turn sells the paper. In our final mutation, David Wallace asks Michael to go to lunch. Since Michael is further down the line, his mutation will be the one to affect the paper sales. Since Michael isn't there, Dwight doesn't act as assistant to the regional manager, and Jim just spends the days pranking Dwight, selling no paper at all.